In this video, we'll explore terrifying experiences shared by fellow YouTubers. But we want to hear from you too. We're on the hunt for real-life ghost stories, eerie encounters, and supernatural sightings from our amazing community. If you've had an experience that made your hair stand on end, send it to my email address in the description box. Your story could be featured in an upcoming video. So, turn off the lights, grab a spooky snack, and let's explore the unknown together. Happy haunting!
When I was a kid around 10 years old, 10 to maybe 11, my uncle in the family, unfortunately his life was taken by another individual. I was completely unaware of that, and at the time I was in South Carolina, and this took place in Michigan. So it was near Christmas time, it was mid-December, and we had to take a spontaneous trip to Michigan, and I thought it was just for Christmas time because my family kind of liked to take a Christmas vacation to Michigan to visit the rest of the family. I did not know what happened to my uncle happened. And again, I was a very young individual and I do not remember anyone telling me about it. And I remember very specifically that my mom was pretty protective over whatever the information was that she received on the phone for us to go to Michigan. Well, on the way to Michigan, we stopped at a hotel in Ohio, I believe it was. And I remember very vividly when we got to that hotel, it was extremely late at night. We went to bed. My grandma was there and my mom was there. And I was sleeping in the bed with my grandmother while my mom was in the other bed. And I remember waking up and I could hear something at our hotel room door. And it kind of scared me a little bit because I was a kid, you know, and I didn't know what crazy, creepy things could have happened at the hotel. Well, I hear this noise coming from the hotel door and I'm looking at it and I'm just laying in the bed and I'm looking at the door because I can see it. And next thing I know, and this sounds completely ridiculous, I know it does. The next thing I know, I see mist and fog rolling underneath the door, and the next thing you know, my uncle just right out of the fog just appears out of the ground, and he's just waving at me. He's waving and he is tipping his hat because that's something my uncle always did. He always wore a cowboy hat whenever he farmed, and he would always tip his hat. And he tipped his hat and then he went into the air conditioner vent and just got sucked into it and disappeared. And I remember waking my grandma up and I'm like, and I'm not going to use my uncle's name, but I was like, Grandma, Uncle was here. And my grandma was really upset that I was saying that. She's like, why would you say that? You should know better than to say that. And my mom woke up and she's like, what is all the fuss about? And basically I told him that I seen my uncle, and my mom started crying. My grandma started crying. And my mom told my grandma that she never told me of the situation that happened for me to even know that uncle passed away. So that was kind of like my paranormal moment in life, and I've had a couple others, but that one was the most detailed and really hard to explain. If that was not the ghost of my uncle saying goodbye, I don't know what it was. So
So today I'm going to share with you some paranormal encounters that I've experienced. As far back as I can remember, I've encountered ghosts and ghostly events and paranormal activity, from disembodied voices and noises to objects moving to seeing apparitions and being affected emotionally. I've encountered demons, spirits, elementals, other lower level entities, let's say. I'm not going to name them. So I've always lived a bit of like a paranormal type lifestyle because I've just always been exposed to this kind of stuff ever since I was a child, as far back as I can remember. As a child, this stuff used to really frighten the hell out of me because I didn't fully understand what was happening whenever these entities would engage with me, or I would encounter residual energy that had become active, and I didn't understand it. I was too young, I didn't have enough experience. And now I'm older, I've spent my adult life honing my mediumship skills, my empathic skills, and just gaining doing my best to gain as much experience as I can. So now I have a pretty good handle on what's what. And that makes things a little bit easier, but it is still scary because I still encounter things I've never encountered before, and every spirit is different, just like every person is different. As a spiritual medium, as a light worker, an energy worker, an empath, a psychic, whatever you want to call me, I've come to understand these paranormal encounters from a spiritual side of things, from an energetic side of things. And what really fascinates me is understanding it from a physical point of view. I mean, we could have a whole discussion right now about this reality, this physical reality, what's real and what isn't, and that this body that we're in has only 5 senses to rely on. So that's interpreting this environment. It's making it look the way that it does, smell the way that it does, sound the way that it does, feel the way that it does, and yet it's not fully accurate because we only have these 5 tools at our disposal. So being aware of this stuff has made me super fascinated to use like ghost hunting equipment, right? So I've dabbled a fair amount in paranormal investigations and using EMF readers and using like thermal cameras and things like that, and it's fascinating. It fascinates me. It really fascinates me, finding physical evidence and bringing in physical information using a device that my body isn't equipped with, and then kind of marrying this data together in some sort of way to try and understand it. And in a lot of cases I've been investigating like a building or some sort of environment, and I've been using both. I've been using both my body and my skill set and physical objects. And it's really cool, it's really fun, and it's really interesting. I wanted to share a couple of my paranormal experiences with you. There's 2 in particular that really stick out for me, that are especially memorable. And one of them happened about 4 years ago when I went to a gaming expo called EGX with my then boyfriend. So originally we were going to go to this gaming expo for 1 day, and it was actually ran over 2 days. Originally my boyfriend at the time and I were only going to go for the first day, but by the time we got to the end of that day we realised that there was still a whole bunch of stuff that we hadn't even seen because we run out of time. So we decided to stay in a hotel, just book a last minute hotel and come back the following day. So I got on my phone and I started looking around for like last minute hotel rooms and stuff, and I found a hotel called Madeley Court. Never heard of it before. It looked, in the photos, it looked like some very old stately home, and it looked very posh. And they had like 1 room available, and it was dirt cheap because it was last minute. So we snatched it up. It wasn't too far away from where we were. The convention that we went to was in Birmingham. So we got ourselves in the car and we drove on over to a place called Telford and to a little suburb which is a part of Telford called Madeley, which I'd never been to. And we drove up this very grandiose driveway, gravel driveway between these 2 big gate posts, into the grounds of Madeley Court. Now, I knew nothing about this place. I'd never been there before. I'd never seen it before, never heard of it, knew nothing about it. And since I've been there, and after all of the crazy stuff that happened whilst we were there, I've done some research. It's very interesting. The Madeley, so Madeley Court is set on the land of Madeley, right? Madeley is now a part of the city of Telford. Madeley, as a town, is actually recorded in the Domesday Book as having been established in the 8th century. And Madeley Court itself, the building, was built in the very early 1500s. It's crazy old, and you know, who knows what went on the land before the building was even built. What I'm now realizing, which is a little bit crazy, but the story that I had lined up to tell you after this one is about my own house. And my house is in a very small village, which the village that I live in was recorded in the Domesday Book also. And I hadn't realised that until like just now. Crazy. So we park up in the car park, and then we walk through the grounds to go and check in. And the room that we were actually staying in wasn't in the main building. There was, and it's funny as well, or funny not funny. See, there it is again. I keep hearing noises in my house that I don't normally hear. Just humour me, but just out of curiosity, I'm going to I have an app here on my phone that allows spirits to speak. To be fair, I've not talked about this story for years. I think I probably told a couple of people once, like when it was fresh in my mind, when it just happened, like the following weeks. But I don't think I've really talked about it since. Just for fun, I'm going to leave this running. I'm just going to sit it in front of me. Oh, I can't leave it running for long because it like cooks my phone. But I'm going to leave that running whilst I'm telling you guys the story. So this was back in the days when I used to smoke cigarettes, and obviously you can't smoke in hotel rooms and things. And it was pretty cold. EGX is always in September, so it was quite cold. So we decided that we were going to go and sit in the car for like an hour or something and just chuff a load of cigarettes before we went to sleep. So we went and sat in my car. Now, my car, the car that I had then, it had parking sensors. I feel out of breath. So, my boyfriend and I were sitting in the car, and we've got the engine on because we had the heat blowers on. And we're just chilling, just shooting the breeze, just chatting about the day that we just had. And we've got the windows down because we're smoking. And where I was parked, it was a wide open gravel car parking lot. But I was parked a good distance away from anybody else. There were no other cars near where I'd parked, and there was big, flat, wide open space. So whilst we're sitting there, just chatting, parking sensor comes on. Just beep, 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 then stops. As if someone had just walked across the front of the car. And we stopped, looked at each other, and were like, that's weird. And then it happened again, and again, and again. Over the space of maybe 10-15 minutes, it just kept happening. Or it would just be one little blip, just beep, and then stop. And on my dashboard, the little line thing would come up to show me that there's an object in front of me. And I'm looking out the window, got my headlights on as well, so I can see. There is nothing there. It's all wide open space. Now, when this was going on, I got out the car because I was like, well, I need to test this and see, you know, maybe a particularly big moth landed on the sensor, or maybe there was a cat or a hedgehog or something. So I tested it, and I had my boyfriend sitting in the car watching the sensor on the dashboard, and I was trying all sorts of things. I was just waving my hand in front of the sensor. It wouldn't go off until I was quite close to it. I walked in front of the car at varying distances to see how close you needed to be to make the sensor go off. I think you needed to be 3 feet away for the sensors to be active. And I tried like throwing a stone across to see if it would pick that up, and it didn't. Also, the sensors were in the bumper, which is about the same height as your knee. So if it was a cat or a hedgehog or a stoat or some other small animal, they're too short to set the sensors off. So the only thing that was setting the sensors off was a fucking person, or like a solid object like a wall or a hedge or something, which there wasn't. And if there was a person, we couldn't see them. Me and boyfriend been sat in the car now for about 2 hours. And we're sat in a car park. My parking sensor keeps going off as if there's something in front of the car. Although now the display's not working. This car is 2 years old. The whole time I've had it, this has never happened. If I go around the front of the car, there is nothing here. And these are the sensors that keep going off right here. There's nothing on it. Nothing on it. There's nothing here. The tarmac is flat. The car isn't sitting on a hill. There's just nothing here. So, nothing there. Just to experiment, and I'm going to turn it off, take the key out, and we'll turn it all back on. Still going. Nothing there. So we both came to the conclusion that this was paranormal. So of course we sit in the car and we just start talking. We're just like talking to them. And so I'm asking, or we both were, asking questions like, are you there? Can you make the sensors go off again? Can you make this beep? Can you come and stand in front of the car? Are you friendly? Like, are you happy for us to have a conversation with you? So whilst I'm sat there asking these questions, and my boyfriend sat next to me asking these questions, I just felt something shift. I felt the energy. It's making my eyes water just recalling this. I just remember this deep-seated feeling of unease just like swept in. And I remember saying to him, do you feel different? Did you feel that? Do you feel different? And he was like, things feel really weird now. They didn't feel weird, I felt pretty relaxed, but now I feel a bit on edge. I was like, yeah, I feel really anxious right now. And the sensors on the front of the car started to beep, like constant beeps, like someone was standing rather than walking past. And it was like beep, 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 and then it would stop. And then it would go beep, 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 and it would and it kept going, like it would stop and then it would start, stop, start, stop, start, stop, stop. And it started, and like it wasn't answering our questions, because I was saying, are you a male? Can you make it beep if you're a male? And it would go beep, 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 and I say thank you, and I say, right, just in honor of testing this, are you female? If it's a no, then don't make it beep, and it would go beep, beep, beep. So I'm like, okay. whoever this isn't paying any attention to our questions, it's just playing with the sensor now. And that's fine, you know, because I think if I were in that situation and I was a spooky ghost and I just found that I could manipulate something to that degree, I'd probably play with it too. But there's something about the energy that just felt very aggressive. It didn't feel nice at all. It really didn't feel comfortable. And even now as I'm recalling it, I'm feeling uncomfortable. I just put my spidey senses out there, as I do, and I got the image of a robed, hooded man, like a monk.
What should I do?
That's the first time it spoke. Look at my goosebumps. That's the first time it said anything the whole time I've been recording and talking to you guys. That was a whole sentence as well. Oh my god. Do you see what I mean? How I was saying that I'm so used to this stuff, yet it still scares me. Who are you? Okay, I'm just gonna keep talking. I'm just gonna keep going. Oh god, you made me jump, dude. You really made me jump. It was like a monk. No, nothing? Okay. It was like a monk. And couldn't see his face. He was just wearing this hood. And like a long robe with like a little... Oh, it was a notification. It's okay. It just went... It made me jump. With like a rope tie, you know, around his waist. And I felt that he wanted me to step out of the car. And that's why he kept making these sensors just go beep, 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 and then stop. And then beep, 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 beep. And it just kept going back, like back and forth, back and forth. So I remember I turned to my boyfriend. I was like, so I'm kind of getting like a monk, this dude, and I feel like he wants me to get out of the car. And he was like, why don't you try it? So I was like, okay, I don't feel comfortable, but f it, I'm gonna try it. So I opened the car door, and as soon as my one foot got out of the car and touched the floor, the beep stopped going beep, 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 and just went beep, and it was solid for the entire time that my foot was touching the ground. And so I lifted my foot up off the ground and put it back in the car, and I sat back in the car. It stopped. And I was like, well, that was weird. And he was like, that was pretty weird. So I'm like, I'm gonna try that again.
Was that 3?
That was 3.
That was 3.
Still 3.
Okay, I'm standing outside the car now. I can't see my feet, but I'm standing outside the car. If I get back in... 2. I'll do it again. I'll get back out. 3. 3 bars. I'm going to go and walk in front of the car.
Okay.
But I'm going to go over by the lights, so I'm not going to set the sensors off. I'm just interested to see what happens. Okay, so now I'm going to get back in. 2. Okay, well the other way to test this then is to move the car. We'll just move it like literally here. So like I said, this is all perfectly level ground. Alright, now we've moved and we've stopped. This proves then that the parking sensors are working perfectly.
I realised that what was happening was the car was acting as a Faraday cage. It was blocking my energy from the spirit, and the spirit wanted to feed off of my energy, and so he could only do that if I got out of the car. So with the constant beeps, he was coaxing me out of the car, and it worked twice. And then, of course, as soon as I get out of the car, he just came over with his little straw, was like, and having a little drink out of my energy. And then I get back in the car and he's like, beep, 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 again, because he's like, no, 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 come on, come back out the car. Let me feed off of your soul. Once we'd left, the following day, I did a whole bunch of research, as I said, and the grounds where the car park now is used to be gardens, and the gardens is where monks used to hang out. Now, once I'd left and I did this research, I discovered that people often see apparitions of monks walking around in that very same area. I never saw anything with my own two eyes, but I am, hand on heart, I truly believe that that was a monk, and not a nice one. So the activity just kind of died off, so we just went back to our room. There was no spookiness going on in the room, which was awesome. Got some decent sleep, got up in the morning, checked out, left. Went and enjoyed the gaming expo, the convention, for the second day, and then that night stayed at my boyfriend's parents' house. It was the middle of the night and we were pretty wired from the day, and we decided that we were going to go back to Madeley Court and park in the car park and see if we could document any ghostliness. So we went back and we sat in the car park. It was probably 11 p.m, midnight-ish when we arrived. And we sat in the car park in the same spot, and we were there for about 2 hours and we got absolutely nothing, which even more validated our experience from the previous night. If we parked in the same spot, same conditions, there was no wind, the weather was calm, it was exactly the same as it was the night before, and this time nothing. That's just completely unexplainable. So it further validated, what we'd experienced. So we decided to leave. We'd been there for 2 hours-ish and nothing had happened. So we were driving really slowly out of the grounds through the big, pillars, for the entrance. And then there's a really long tarmacked driveway. It's probably about half a mile long. It's really long and really straight, and it runs through part of forest. It's lined with trees, and it's pitch dark. There's no street lights or anything down there. The only light is coming from the car, the front of the car, the headlights. And we're driving through, and my boyfriend's like, no, wait, stop, I need the bathroom real quick, so I'm just going to dip out the car and just go pee in the bush. He stepped out, and as he stepped back in again, the sensors started to beep. It seemed very coincidental, right? That he would stop me at that particular point in the road where there was obviously a spirit waiting to... I feel like the spirit told him that he needed the bathroom at that particular time, and that's why we stopped. It was just very, very odd. So a dialogue began. We actually established a dialogue where I was asking a question, and then the spirit would answer intelligently using the parking sensors. I got out of the car to check to see if there was anything around. I walked around the car. I wanted to see if there was anything that was giving us a false positive, that maybe there was a little animal out there, or there was a leaf stuck on one of my sensors, or I don't know, anything at all that could be making the sensors go off, and I couldn't find anything out there. Naturally, we reached the conclusion that it was a spirit. And then we start to get these intelligent responses where I'm asking a question and I'm saying, make it beep if you agree. If this is a yes answer that you're giving me, then make it beep, and then stop, and then step away. And this spirit was answering my questions. I have some footage of this. I used to stream to Periscope. I don't know if any of you are familiar with Periscope. It's now not in business anymore, which is a real shame, but it was a streaming platform that I used to stream on quite frequently, and I streamed on Periscope whilst this was happening. So I have some footage of this encounter to share with you. I very much appreciate you attempting to communicate with me right now. I'm very grateful for that. Thank you. Thank you very much. Could you step away from the sensor for me? Thank you very much for that. I'm very grateful. Are you happy with me asking you some questions? If you could come close, thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. Could you make that stop? Thank you. May I ask if you are male? If you could make the sensor go off again. You're male? Could you confirm that for me? Are you male? I don't want us to get our wires crossed. I want to make sure. Are you male? Thank you very much.
Dude.
Thank you very much for that. So I'm asking these questions and I'm building up an image as this went on. So it wasn't just through the to and fro of the dialogue that we were having, but you know, I was using my own body and you know my own skill set to figure out who this person was. And he was a man, probably in his late 20s, early 30s. His clothes were very plain, so I couldn't tell you what time frame he was from. To start with, I felt that maybe he was from like the mid 1900s, like the 1950s, 1960s, or 40s even. But the more I conversed with him, the more I felt that the language that he was using was not of this time at all, and he was probably from much earlier. So I'd love to be able to pinpoint which decade and you know he was from, but I just can't. I mean, it could have been any time between 1600 and 1900, which is obviously a very long period of time, but I really couldn't pinpoint it. And as we're going, I'm starting to open myself up so that he can talk to me in my mind, which is what I do as part of my mediumship skill set. I open myself up to a degree. I just saw a black shadow move across. Just here is my office doorway, and it's open because I'm the only one here right now. And Lottie likes to bumble between rooms, so I leave the doors open. And so outside is a hallway, and then there's the living room doorway. And I just saw a small, like maybe cat-sized shadow just go across that doorway. Fun! You start talking about spooky things and then it starts happening. Right, so when I opened myself up, the dialogue between us got a lot more intense, and I felt that he'd committed a crime. He'd done something pretty awful. But the energy that he brought to me was it wasn't evil at all. I was going to say it was very positive. It wasn't positive in the way that he felt. He was very, very sad. He was very excited that someone was actually talking to him. He'd spent a long, long time by himself. Just stuck in this like repetition of what he'd done and his guilt and his remorse. And it was keeping him there. Because we established that he wanted to leave and he knew the way, but he wouldn't leave. And it took me a little while to figure out why that was. And he brought to me this energy of like, I'm so sorry. I am so, so sorry. I did something really, really dumb and I am so sorry. And he was so riddled by the guilt of whatever it was that he'd done. And so I'm like, what you've done can't really be that bad. And so I asked him, what did you do? And he showed me. It's making my eyes water. What he showed me was that he was in love with a woman and she kind of friend-zoned him. I'm not sure that he was like all there in the kindest way possible. I think that perhaps he was a little slower than other adults his age, and he felt a lot of love and affection for this particular woman. And I want to say her name was Catherine. He used to bring her flowers like that he'd hand-picked himself. It was very sweet. A little bit childlike. He was a little bit childlike in his approach towards her. And he would follow her home. And he would watch her and he would basically stalk her, but he didn't have any ill intention at all. And one day he summoned the courage to tell her how he felt and to tell her that he wanted to court her. And she was already in a relationship. I think she may have even been married. And so he would make the long walk up the driveway to where we...
Grandmother.
That says grandmother. Don't know why it would be saying grandmother, but I got goosebumps again. Yay! So he would make the long walk up the driveway to where we were now parked, and he had a fistful of flowers, like bluebells and little blue and white flowers, and he showed me what she looked like. She was wearing all blue. It was a long blue, it was like a long blue skirt, very flowy blue skirt, with like a cream coloured blouse, and she had long brown hair and it was all pinned up into a bun. And you know, she's a very, very pretty lady, and he told her how he felt, and she very calmly and very diplomatically rejected him, and he strangled her to death. Through his distress that she didn't want to be with him romantically, he just got overcome and he lunged for her and he just wouldn't let her go. He showed me that at the time he didn't really realise what was happening. He didn't realise what he was doing. It's not that he didn't understand that strangling someone would kill them, but it wasn't his intention to kill her. He was just sort of like grabbing her, like why won't you love me kind of thing, and he ended up with his hands around her throat, and he was led on top of her so she couldn't move, and they were in the undergrowth, and he dug a little pit out in the woods where it had happened, just next to the path, next to the driveway. And he kind of covered her with leaves and dirt and stuff. He didn't bury her properly, he just sort of hid her. And then he ran away. And I don't know what happened after that. It wouldn't tell me. But for him, it wasn't about what happened afterwards. It was about that event. That event was what kept him there. And unfortunately, because it's so dark, in the footage, you can't see me sitting in the driver's seat, realizing this, right? So in the footage, what's happening is he's having this conversation with me in my mind, and I'm not really saying anything, and he's beeping the making the sensors go off, and it's beeping a little bit here and there. And then what happened was I was sitting in the car seat like this, and he showed me that he strangled her, and he showed me where he did it. And it was like just there, just where he'd stopped us to talk to us, right next to where the car was parked, but just sort of maybe I could throw a stone and hit the spot where it happened. It was like just there, just beyond the tree line. And what happened was, in this footage, I just pointed. I didn't say a word, I just pointed like that at the spot where it happened, and then this happened.
You lost your way? Okay. It's easy. The way out is that way. Just keep going that way. That's the way out. Does that help you? Are you still there? Are you still there?
Did they just leave? Oh, no,
Oh, you're still here.
still there, okay.
Alright, thank you. Okay, I understand, thank you. Are you able to leave that way? Are you able to get out over there? You can, but you won't. But you want to, but you won't. You must have a reason. You must. There has to be there is a reason. Are you willing to tell me what that reason is? If you won't tell me, I can't help you. Do you want me to help you? Okay. Then you gotta tell me. You gotta tell me. You gotta tell me why you're still here. Okay, thank you. I really appreciate that. If you would like to communicate with me through my mind, thank you. I'm quite happy, thank you, please could you, thank you. I'm quite happy for you to plan images, or I'm also happy for you to, thank you. If that's your preferred means of communication, then I am open to that. Images or... Okay, thank you. I'll try to hear you. I'll try my very best. whole time we've been sat here, I've had a woman with a white blouse and a very high skirt, blue, like navy, maybe a little bit lighter, from like but high, like the base of her rib cage, like high, all the way down to her ankles with like lace along the seams. It's like really long skirt and a white blouse and a hair in a bun. I've had that image in my head the entire time we've been sat in this particular spot. Does that make any sense at all to anyone? Thank you. Is that who I'm talking to now? Did you know that woman? Did you do something horrible to her? You hurt her? Okay, thank you. I very much appreciate you answering that honestly. Thank you. Can you stop? Thank you. Now you know that I am not going to allow you to cause me any harm. You understand that, don't you? Thank you. Do you feel remorse for what you... Okay. Is that why you're stuck here? Is your guilt keeping you here? Can I ask you a question? It knows. Okay. Thank you. Could you step back? Can you stop? I need you to stop. Stop it right now. Okay, I understand. Where I pointed is where he murdered her. That's true, isn't it? Where I pointed is where you murdered her. Right here. Right over there. It's true, isn't it? Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for confirming that.
So after everyone calmed down, me mostly, I started to just really understand, you know, why he was stuck there, and she'd moved on. It was very clear to me that she'd moved on. She wasn't there anymore. And her energy just felt very light and airy, like she'd moved on, you know, she'd sort of made her peace with things, and that was that. And yet he'd been just pacing around in his own guilt and anxiety for potentially hundreds of years, and had no one to talk to, no one understood, no one had given him the time of day, no one even knew he was there. And you know, until now. And I was able to hear him and see him and converse with him, and he was very grateful, and he was very, very upset, very distraught, and finally he was able to get this off his chest. And I could feel the relief, you know, like when I pointed, him making the sensor go off solidly like that was his relief. He was like, yes, that's where it happened. Oh my God, yep, you know, you understand, you can see, you know, and he was so overzealous. That's what made the sensor go off the way that it did, which just heightened my anxiety, because I've just been shown where a murder happened, and then this sensor is just going off solidly. It was crazy. It was really, really crazy. It was just one of the most intense paranormal experiences I've ever had. And I'm so grateful for it. I mean, as scary as it was and as unsettling as it was, it really helped me to learn like how to converse with spirits and how to help them, and I found myself just talking to him like I'm talking to you. And I was like, let's just apply logic to this here. She's gone. She's the victim. She's the one who's really hurt here. And yet you're keeping yourself here, you're keeping yourself here because of how you feel about what you did. And, it's time for you to go home now. You're going to feel better when you go home. And I mean home, like back to source, like wherever that light is, you go to it. You go to it, buddy. You go home. Because that's where you need to be, and all will be forgiven, because that's just the nature of things. And he listened, and I watched him walk towards this really intense ball of light, and then he was just gone. And so my boyfriend and I were just sort of sat there like, that was intense. And we left, and I think it was about a year later, we went back to that exact same spot just to see if he was actually gone. And there was just nothing there. There was no activity whatsoever in that exact same spot. That dude had gone. He'd gone home, and I felt very relieved for him. So yeah, that was like a crazy encounter. I'd never considered, I didn't go into that thinking I can use my car as a ghost hunting device. It just really goes to show that anything can be used and manipulated by other energy forms like spirits, and it's fascinating.